Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
The Daily Compliance News for August 2nd, 2021, the Rethinking Travel Edition. And we begin with that story from the New York Times, as many companies are rethinking travel because, in reality, if you travel for one meeting, it could have been a Zoom meeting. And it turns out that approximately 40% of business travel is for one or not too many more meetings. So companies are really rethinking whether or not they need to have as much travel as they did before. And even the CEO of Boeing has said that he will not be traveling for meetings unless it's with a customer. So perhaps a big change in travel, at least for the near future. Next up, a fired Deutsche Bank executive says that she was fired for whistleblowing in the company's asset management arm, DWS Group, that handles ESG for the company. It's traditionally said that the company's ESG standards are above the industry average, but behind closed doors, Deutsche Bank has struggled to define and implement an ESG strategy, at times painting a rosier than reality picture to investors, according to the former sustainability chief and from internal emails, which the Wall Street Journal reviewed. The experience underscores the difficulty and pressure money managers are facing to plant their flag in the hottest corner of the fund market, where investors are putting literally $3 billion a day. The person named Desiree Fixler says she was fired for raising these issues internally. So Deutsche Bank's troubles still continue, and they just can't seem to get it right, can they? Next up, we have a couple of stories from the Financial Times. The first one is that apparently office building owners are refused to accepting that work has changed. Although they are bringing their people into the office, their clients aren't. So it's going to be interesting to see whether they actually have a reality check going forward or not. But right now, they are hoping this will save their collective tushies. And finally, also from the FT, the SEC cracks down on Chinese listings. I don't know why companies or investors are just waking up to the fact that when you buy a Chinese company, nothing good is going to happen. And they will have to disclose more about their structure and contacts with the Chinese government if they want access to the American capital markets. This is a move that's long overdue, as the Chinese have been using American capital and basically sucking it out of the country for quite some time. So Gary Gensler and the SEC are moving towards requiring additional disclosures to investors. He said that he believes these changes will enhance the overall quality of disclosure and registration statements of offshore issuers that have affiliations with Chinese-based offering companies. So whether or not the Chinese will actually fulfill these obligations, you still can't get a decent set of books and records out of China, and the internal controls are always problematic. So we may be at a crosswinds finally on Chinese companies having access to U.S. capital markets. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.